Good morning. Today I'd like to speak a little bit on the nature of love and attachment. These are two things that are often mixed up in ways that don't help us, so separating them provides a lot of clarity and helps us figure out what's going on in life a little bit more. So, love comes from the heart, and contrary to what we've been taught, the heart are not our emotions. Second chakra is emotions, fourth chakra is heart. Heart is curiosity. Heart is joyful curiosity. As far as I've explored, being in heart space means we're in joyful curiosity. Anytime we're not joyfully curious, we're not in heart space. So it's really easy to get to heart space and fall out. It's really, really easy to flow in and out of these states. Meditation and daily practices and all the spiritual work is all about being able to stay in heart space. Even when we get yanked out of it, we can just jump right back in. Someone says something crude and vulgar, we say, yeah, you're reflecting where you're at with your consciousness. You're shining where you're at with your consciousness. That's derogatory. I don't like that. I'm not going to be around that. I'm not going to choose to be around that. I'm not going to accept that as tolerable behavior, but I'm also going to let you have that reality, and I'm going to move on to being in my heart space, because I'm not going to let someone else's words, thoughts, feelings, or actions get in the way of me being in heart space. Why would I want to do that? If it pulls me out for a second and then I have to jump back in and study that mechanism of how I got pulled out enough to the point where I can really ground that and not have that happen anymore, that's the end goal, is to identify the things that pull us out of heart space and neutralize them. Just say, okay, I know and love that. I empathize with that so much that you are my child. You are an aspect of me that I have forgiven myself for acting that way, and so experiencing it externally no longer bothers us, because we have processed it internally. We have used alchemy. We have used self-study to solve the problem. So our feelings are often confused as our heart, because we're told to be confused in so many different ways. We're programmed to say that life is confusing and that we are confusing, when life is simple and we are simple. There's a lot going on, but it's fairly simple. Like, all we have to do is have a little trust, a little faith, look for the patterns. I mean, if we're just looking for patterns in life, if we're joyfully curious looking for patterns, life isn't that hard. There's a lot that needs to be done, but it's not that hard. It's a series of events that are all now. It's all about just being present now. If we're in heart space now, we're going to figure it out. We're going to be curious. We're going to let our minds explore with curiosity and love, and we're generally going to find solutions pretty rapidly that way. If we're not finding solutions, we're still learning so much from being curious that it's almost like we might create a whole new reality where we don't need the solution we thought we needed. So joyful curiosity, heart space, fourth chakra, green. Colors, the chakra represent how much clarity we have in them. So the darker the color, the more unconscious we are, and the more it exists in its primal state. And the lighter the color of our chakra is, the more refined we have, the more we've processed through, the more solid we are. People with a very strong identity, a very clear identity, are able to help other people with their identity. Their first chakra is almost pink-white, because the lower, denser colors are just no longer really there. We've resolved identity to the point where it's just pure pink-white, and other people are drawn to that and can absorb it. It doesn't feel like people are taking from our identity. Other people being needy might not be pleasant, but it doesn't feel like they're taking from us when we have a really strong first chakra. We feel like we have all the identity to give the world. We are so solid in our identity that we can give our identity to anyone else who wants it. We readily find ways to empower others with our identity, to give gifts of our identity to other people to help them with their identity. Eventually they'll find their own identity and they won't need it anymore, but this is an example of how we can continually improve our chakras. We can have a spiritual awakening, we can have chakra alignment, we can reach higher states of consciousness, but we can continually improve in each one of our chakras. Just because we have alignment and because we have higher states of consciousness does not mean we've reached maximum potential in any of our chakras. I think that the whole point is that until we're able to travel as light on command, we still got a bunch of work we can still be doing. We can just still be practicing and getting better. So it's really important to realize that everything is infinite. Until we comprehend infinity, because we are infinity as a tangible way, we're not all the way there. So there's no real there to get there. I'm sure we've heard everyone say that before. It's self-practice over and over again. We get better and better and better, and we reap the rewards from being better. We're able to perceive more. We're more content. Like I was saying before, I sleep like amazing. I don't worry about sleep ever. I wake up feeling great all the time. Pain doesn't, excessively bother me. Like if I have a stomach ache or a headache, I can usually one, tell my body not to be sending me pain messages anymore, and two, start using my consciousness to figure out why I have a headache, why I have a stomach ache, solve the problem, see what I can do about preventing the problem in the future. These are all things that consciousness does. This is natural, consciousness wants to solve problems in that way. Okay, so it's really important to clarify as much as we can through self-study what our emotions are, and so that we can really see the contrast between love and curiosity of our heart and our emotions. So if someone was asking me about, they love someone and they thought they were cheating, or they were no longer responding to their calls, and they just had a bunch of questions, and I said, well, attachment is the source of suffering. We've heard, countless masters say this before, and what this tangibly means is that heart space and attachment are just way different. When we see that with clarity, that yes, I love someone, and yes, I am attached to them. They're two separate things. So I can work on releasing my attachments and still be in love with a person. I can still, there's people that I cannot be around because their behavior is unacceptable, but I still love them. I don't have to stop loving them. I've heard the phrase used, loving from afar. So we can love people without being in their daily life. We can love how they've enriched our lives. There are people that have taught me things, maybe directly or maybe just indirectly. They didn't even know they were doing it. People who they're very experienced. The way they see life allowed me to see life in a different way that helped me. So maybe they've spent most of their time being mean or being inconsiderate or just were unpleasant for some reason. That doesn't mean that they still haven't taught me a lot of valuable lessons. It just means that I don't want their presence. I want to study them from afar. I can remember what they have said. We all have the ability to absorb other people's personas and replay them. So if I'm reviewing a piece of information that I'm not comprehending, maybe I can say, oh yeah, I have a friend who thinks this way. What if I use his way of analyzing things, his way of processing on this question? What answer would he come up with? Oh yeah, I don't agree with everything he says and believes, but he does have a way to be perceptive beyond me in certain areas. So I can borrow that. So we can internalize other people's psyches. We can actually internalize psyches from people that are no longer alive, from our past selves, from all kinds of things, because the Akashic records, the energetic fields, contain all the histories of this earth. It's all accessible to us. I was taught a very direct way to do this by a great teacher, where you just sit down and you do a process and you do it. A lot of people have intuitive processes to get there. I find that I just get information that I need without having to try too much if I know that I need it. If I say, oh, well, I have a situation, I don't know enough about this, I'll find the sources that I need to study, or the sources will come to me sometimes. It's amazing how this works. It's not always exactly what I want and exactly when I want it, but it's generally what I need within the time frame that I need it in. So it's pretty amazing. You just have to be yeah, I need to learn this somehow, and then it usually ends up happening. Alright, so separation between emotions and attachment and love. Relationships get much more pleasant, not necessarily easier, but they get much more pleasant when we start identifying what attachment is and what love is, because we can start ignoring attachment and feeding love. And what this looks like is anytime we feel like we're losing our power, we want someone to have power over us, we want someone to do things for us, we feel like we're slipping into a state where our feelings have more control than anything else. These are signs of attachment. Reactions, emotional reactions are great indicators that there's an attachment, because emotional reactions generally come from an unconscious attachment to something. If we're compassionate, detached, if we're in loving curiosity and not fixated, then we flow much better and we don't experience the dis-ease from these situations. So being in our heart space still allows us to make rational decisions. It's the heart space is not being quote unquote falling in love. Falling in love is again more having our emotional body, our second chakra, take over. It's not really a healthy thing to do. It's kind of fun to experience as a joyful, blissful experience, and under extremely isolated situations, it can be okay as long as we're doing consciously. It's okay to consciously fall in love, because then we can step back and say, oh, that was delicious. I just had some ice cream of love, and now I can step back and say, okay, now my rational mind is going to say, if this is going to happen, this is going to happen this way, and then I'm going to have to check in and say, Spirit, am I okay with this? Is my spirit okay with this? Am I offending my spirit by trying to engage in this way? So there's all different things we can use for conscious relationships, but defining the separation between attachment and heart space is really important. If we're ever finding we're not curious about the other person for whatever reason, a friend or lover or anyone, if we're not curious, it's a good indicator that we're not in heart space. We're not in a good receptive space, and we should seek to resolve this immediately by processing or simple kind confrontation. If we think that we've processed a lot and we're wondering if someone else might have something they can work on, and we think they're up for it, we might find a kind way to let them know and say, hey, I did some processing on this, and I reached these conclusions. I find I needed to change my behavior and my thoughts this way, but I also feel like there's something I'm not getting that I need, or there's something that's being done that I don't appreciate, and I need to vocalize this. And if we do it in a gentle way, we're not making a demand of the person. We're not demanding that they change in any way. We're saying, this is my experience. I would like my experience to be better. I would want to check in with you to see if we can both mutually have an agreement to make our situations better, so we both feel better. People that aren't willing to negotiate, to have needs met, generally aren't worth our time. We should not try to engage with them. I mean, if they're our coworkers, we shouldn't make small talk with them, and we should try to take as much responsibility into our own hands so we don't have to depend on communication with people like this if we have to interact with them. Personal relationships, we can just choose not to spend time with people. I don't care how many years I've spent with someone or how many good times I've had with someone. If they're committed to being disrespectful to themselves, to other people, if they're committed to not being open to conversation, if they require getting mean and being, derogatory just to have a conversation, they're not worth having in our lives. They're just, why? People that respond with love and curiosity are wonderful, and they're all around us. We just have to look for it. The more we are this way, the more we call these people out to join us and say, hey, love and curiosity, hey, let's explore this topic. Let's not take offense when we have ideas that we can share back and forth, and not get attached to our stories and telling our stories. I hear this over and over again when I'm doing this, is people feel offended because they don't feel like their story is being listened to. But for me, if I'm being present and someone is telling a story that I'm not interested in, and I tell them that I don't want to listen to a story, that I want to be present with them and I want to hear from their presence, I'm going to, go back and forth, and that offends them, that's generally just programming, because we've been programmed to be attached to our stories. And again, if I'm ever telling a story or explaining something in my life and someone else says, I'm not interested in that, here, this is what I'm interested in, then it's free flow. I'm not attached to my stories in particular. I'm happy to follow the flow. And again, if what I'm interested in and what someone else is interested in are dramatically different, and we're just not ever reaching a place where we're really enjoying the same subject, that's a good indicator that we probably shouldn't be spending much time together. We shouldn't try to be forcing that situation. Okay, so the nature of emotion and attachment is a low chakra. It's going to have a lot of sexual feelings attached to it. Sometimes it's going to have a lot of intensity. It's going to try to control us above our good judgment. So this is another good indicator that this is attachment and emotion and not our heart. Our heart space will never try to demand anything from us. It'll always seek more information. It'll never close. It'll never make a finality or a judgment. It make temporary conclusions are fine. Like a temporary conclusion would be, I've tried in all earnest to connect with this person, and they're attached in a way that is uncomfortable for me and doesn't work for me, and they're not willing to dialogue around it. Okay, I'm going to walk away from that one. Generally, it's really good to be continue the compassionate detachment through all of our presence. So we are genuinely feeling, we are allowing our feelings. So just because we're not letting our emotional body take over, doesn't mean we're repressing our emotions. We feel things, we experience them, we say, oh, I felt them, I can let go of this now, I can be analytical about this, I can see what's happening. So I might take offense to something, I can take a moment to process that and say, oh, well, this bothered me about what this person said because it reminded me of this aspect of myself that I haven't fully resolved or worked on yet, and now that I resolve and work on it, I can get back to being present. And then if they keep on doing it and I don't find a way that I can help them move past, or they don't find a way that they can move past, then again, it's like physically detached. And I can detach emotionally and process internally, and then see if there's a resolution. And if there's not, then physically you spend less time with them and distance from them. Boundaries are just so important. Boundaries are the foundation for spiritual progression. They're boundaries. We identify what it takes to reach a higher state of consciousness, to move away from reactionary primary emotions and thoughts and identity into curiosity, prevalent curiosity, and figuring out what it takes to sustain that prevalent curiosity in heart space has a lot to do with boundaries. So we set boundaries for ourselves. We say, I am not going to be curious about anything that doesn't bring me joy. This is a big one, because I've been curious about so many things in my life, but now I'm really into the now. I'm really into moving where I want to be all the time. So I let go of idle curiosity. If I say, oh, well, I want to know how that works, and then I have to do a second pass and say, do I really want to know? Is this really going to head me where I want to know? Is this worth the focus of my attention? I know my brain will compulsively study everything it sees, so I have to set boundaries for myself, because maybe I don't need to be thinking about how the electrical system works for the power lines I'm driving by. Maybe that's not very critical information. So that's a simple version of a boundary. I'm not going to think about mundane things unless they're relevant. If my brain's doing it on autopilot and I can do other things, that's fine if it's background processing, but I'm not going to choose to have the focus of my attention be anything other than what I want to bring me more connection and more joy and more heart space. So it is, the reward is that we get to be in loving curiosity all the time. Like my car broke down the other day and I was stuck in a parking lot for 5 hours, but it didn't bother me because I was in curiosity and I was, doing little bits of that, contemplation, trying to solve the problem. Explore avenues and buying a snack and something to drink. I made an evening of it. I made an evening of not being able to go anywhere. I didn't have my phone with me. I just it kind of sucked, but it wasn't that big a deal. It didn't get me down because I was focused on my consciousness. I was problem solving. Anytime kind of fear or difficulty, dis-ease kind of surfaced in me, I said, no, there's no need for that. I'm fine. I can go meditate right now if I want to. I can do some breath work. I can go buy some tea. I can go buy a snack. There's no problem. I can just sit here and contemplate. I don't even really need anything. I have a book in my car. I have writing material, and I didn't even need that. I didn't even need distraction because I was so present in the moment. Problem solving and in observation. All right. So to wrap this up, feelings and emotions are fine. We let them be. We see if they have anything to tell us. If something feels off, I might go over that and replay what was said or what was done or what happened and try to study it and see where I can change my reactions and where maybe someone else, behavior that I want to call out or not be around, choose to not be around. And we have our heart space, loving curiosity. I think they're pretty simple to differentiate, but we've just been confused and tricked into thinking that they're difficult to differentiate and that they're the same thing, which is just ridiculous. That keeps us in a lower state of consciousness. If we think our heart, our guiding principle, our love is our emotions, then we're never going to get anywhere because our emotions will tell us anything. Our emotions will take the stage and never let it go. They will grab the mic from the rest of our being, and our emotions will just talk and talk and talk and never say anything because they're emotions. They just love to talk all the time. Whereas our heart is very still and quiet. Heart space won't demand anything, won't ask anything. We'll be gentle in requesting information, and we'll generally seek to solve problems and find solutions without asking questions, because that's what curiosity is all about. It's solving the problems, going inside. If we need to ask people, we're probably going to be very delicate and very considerate in the way we ask things, because we've contemplated what we want to ask and how we want to ask it and who we're asking it from. So curiosity is also not just a list of questions. Curiosity is more self-study than anything else. One more thing about the heart. As far as I can tell, the heart is our animus. It's what pumps our lifeblood. It's the center of our aliveness. It's basically our version of a sun. We have a little bit of the sun within us. The sun is a star, so a star is the most common form of light. Reality is created through the prismatic effect of light slowing down into physical matter. So our heart is a physical representation of a sun. It pumps our energy and our animus through us. It's been made clear to us that we don't really need food or water, and that our heart pumping and getting sunlight and fresh air is pretty much all we really need. We might need to work to the state. Emotional toxicity, basically any emotion that's not simple love and joy, generally will cause some kind of physical ailment unless it's processed and released properly. And I know this kind of seems like a lot, but it's where we all are. It's all of life experiences this, so you don't have to worry about it too much. The better we get at clarifying ourselves, the better we get at being present in the moment, being in heart space, being in curiosity and ease. We just experience more and more ease. Things that used to be difficult may still happen, but they feel like they're easeful now. They feel like they're experiences that are easeful and challenging. All right. So, from a place of not repetition or patterns or attachment, I'm going to dive into my heart space of these chantings. I'm going to do the Gayatri Mantra like I usually do because it's in a sequence, and I've done a couple other pieces before this. I love it so much. Its meaning keeps expanding for me. I keep studying it, finding new tonalities to use with it, finding more meaning, talking to other people who know more about it than me. I've kind of done a side exploration and learned a lot about it from my internal process around it, but there's a lot external that I don't know about it that's been done. There's been books written about just the Gayatri Mantra, whole books rich with information. There's the Divine Love Worship, which is just straight out singing the Gayatri Mantra, which brings us into a higher state of consciousness the more devoted we are to it. So when we surrender to it, when we give it our animus, when we give our animus to the chant of Gayatri, with sincerity and dedication, we find ourselves lifted up into heart space. It's one of the tools. It's a powerful tool of ascension that people have given us, that has been around for thousands of years. And then doing the mudras, the 13-point mudra around the hand and then around the forehead, and doing the toning for each of the syllables on each of the chakras. This is another aspect of the Gayatri Sutra. As far as I know, there are many aspects of the Gayatri Sutra. It's like a whole thing. It's not just one chant. And as someone corrected me the other day, the Gayatri Mantra is in fact not really a mantra. It's like its whole own thing. And so it's good to have mantras that are empowering, that balance us, that we feel tangible benefit from. And it's also good to have these more evolved practices, which can be like ladders to higher states of consciousness. All right, I am going to start. Let's see, just a minute here. Vitur Varenyam Bargo Devasya Dimahi Dyoyona Prachodayat Om Apojoyoti Rasam Ratam Brahma Bhuvarvasvaram Om Bhargo devasya dhimahi dhyana prachodayat. Mudras svaha tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo devasya dhimahi dhyana prachodayat. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And 3-part breath. In for 5 seconds, hold and relax for 5 seconds, slow controlled exhale for 5 seconds. All right, have a wonderful morning.